our nominee needs to listen to some of the things that all of the candidates have been saying, particularly Ron Paul's understanding that the Federal Reserve is out of control, that the government needs to be limited, and individual liberty is the core Republican principles.
That was Republican Senator Jim DeMint on Morning Joe today, talking about embracing Ron Paul's brand of libertarianism. But do Paul's isolationist and constitutional views run counter to the GOP platform? Is Ron Paul a true Republican? Willie Geist is the host of Way Too Early here on MSNBC and our resident Ron Paul expert.
Am I? I just hope I can get through the segment without SE calling me a woman. Good Lord.
Ms. Geist.
Harsh criticism over there.
Just bury your sorrows in a tub of Ben & Jerry's. We have Ron Paul on record saying that he thinks he's a danger to the status quo. What do you make of that? Is he a danger to the status quo?
Of course he is. He's a danger if he runs as a third-party candidate. He re-elects President Obama, and the polls bear that out. If you put on paper a blind taste test, a guy who won 20% in the Iowa caucus, a guy who won 23% in New Hampshire, a guy who can raise $1 million overnight if he needs to, has incredible energy around his campaign, you'd say, wow, that guy is for real. He's a challenger. And then you tell people he's Ron Paul, and they go, oh,
right.
It's Ron Paul. He's not. The numbers tell you he is a challenger, and he is insofar, I think, as he runs as a third-party candidate. Beyond that, I think he just chips away a little bit. But Mitt Romney certainly has to reckon with him.
Yeah, I think, we talked a little bit yesterday about how does Mitt Romney build a house for Ron Paul supporters. I mean, you were out in New Hampshire. I was out in New Hampshire. I know you guys have experience with the New Hampshire electorate. The folks that are going for Ron Paul are young. They're libertarian. They like his drug policy, his foreign policy. They're not that concerned about, the dismantling of the Fed in terms of his fiscal policy. It didn't feel like that was one of the big rallying banners under which they were rallying. But I do think because, as Willie said, he has so much momentum among those voters, for the GOP, it would behoove the party to bring them into the fold somehow. I just don't know how you do it if you're Mitt Romney.
It's very tricky, and Mitt Romney probably cannot do a convincing job without looking very transparent and sort of like a pander. I mean, most of the Republican candidates have acknowledged sort of generously that they enjoy Ron Paul's fiscal conservatism and that he has great ideas, but they have to back away from his foreign policy because everyone in the audience at the debate says, oh, what a brilliant statement, Ron Paul. And then it's followed by oh, I wish he didn't say that. I mean, that's how it goes with him. So Mitt Romney's going to have to walk a tightrope courting this fiscal conservatism, this end the Fed kind of ethos, while absolutely eschewing his foreign policy.
Well, I wonder, though, is he really, is he a Republican? We have this, we talk a lot about his positions on certain things. Foreign policy would seem to go counter to what the GOP, where the GOP is at. You have folks like John Huntsman, I think, feeling pushed to say, we got to get all the troops home from Afghanistan, perhaps in a nod to Ron Paul supporters. But at the end of the day, shouldn't this guy be a third-party candidate?
Well, even though he's a Republican, I mean, he is finishing what Reagan started. He wants to finish what Reagan started. He makes Gingrich look like a pretender in terms of federal spending. He wants to starve the federal government of money so that it can shrink and disappear. That's what he wants. That's what Reagan wanted. So, I mean, I don't see this guy as anything but a Republican. And a lot of Republicans were isolationists in the 1940s and the 1950s. This is not new to the Republican Party. So I think this talk that he's not a Republican is really convenient for the GOP to get this guy out of the way. And I think the second thing is he has to triangulate between support for him, for Romney, and then what is he going to do for his son, Rand Paul?
Well, who does, I want to bring, see what Willie says, but who does think he's a Republican is a huge chunk of the voters in the first two states in the Republican primaries.
Yeah, absolutely.
And people who identify with the Tea Party put him in second in New Hampshire. Evangelicals put him in second in New Hampshire. So it's not just this easy dismissal of saying, well, these states are representative. The self-identified conservative wings of the party are drawn to him, aren't they?
And I think his supporters view him as actually more than a Republican. He's a messenger for something. If you look at the exit polling out of New Hampshire, they said 77% said they were dissatisfied with the Obama administration. 4 years ago, his supporters, 78% of them said they were dissatisfied with the Bush administration. So it's not necessarily about whether it's a Democrat or a Republican in power. It's about raging against the machine if you're supporting Ron Paul.
Don't you find it interesting, though, and this is anecdotal, but remember the idea around McCain was that he's so old? Why is no one pointing out that that Ron Paul is like 300 years old?
Because I think they really don't want to take
It doesn't
that
matter
seriously because they see him as just kind
And
of
to be fair,
a figurehead.
Yoda lived till 420.
That's true.
And we don't
true.
know how old Gollum was.
You know what Ron Paul does, though, that's unfortunate? The minute you try to take him seriously and you look at all these numbers, he told ABC last week, Terry Moran, I think, asked him, do you see yourself sitting in the White House? He goes, not really.
Not really.
We don't either.
Worth mentioning, Ron Paul has $13 million in the bank as of last quarter, so we will be seeing more from him. Coming up next, the Bain train.